With Dragon Ball Super episode 64 wrapping up this past weekend, Dragon Ball Super is now evenly tied with Dragon Ball GT for having the same number of episodes. And on this video, I wanted to bring on Josh from Dragon Ball Nation, and we're going to have a discussion about Dragon Ball Super hitting this milestone and comparing it to GT so far, and talking about whether or not Super has already surpassed GT as far as quality goes, or if it hasn't really gotten there yet, based on, kind of some of the problems Super's had in comparison to GT. So, Dragon Ball Nation is here, and Dragon Ball Nation, Josh, when it comes to GT, I noticed you're very unbiased. You're not one of those guys that hates GT, and you're not one of those guys that really loves GT. You're kind of right in the middle like me, where there's good stuff and there's bad stuff as well.
I think I look at it at a pretty fair, critical standpoint, and not... The thing about Dragon Ball with me is that I am able to take off my glasses and look at it as a piece of entertainment, and look at it critically, just like with the Dragon Ball Super episodes, with all the reviews. If you say one negative thing, everyone's going to get all riled up on you. But GT is I would say it's an above average anime. It's definitely not bad. It has quite a lot of good bits, but when you apply Dragon Ball to that, it kind of heightens the experience. But GT to me is something that I think most people kind of agree at the first arc is not the most entertaining. It has a lot of really slow and boring bits, but a lot of the fights in that show are pretty solid, I would say. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, we're pretty much on the same boat. I feel like with GT, there's good and there's bad, but to say it's all bad, I think is a little bit misguided in my opinion. But it is all opinions.
Yeah, and you know what else too is I think a lot of people got into GT back in the day, and they had just got done watching Z, and they always compare it to Dragon Ball Z,
which is a fair comparison. It's the quote unquote successor, the sequel series, so it's pretty fair to compare it.
Oh, I agree with it being fair to compare it, but the thing is, I think people had the bar set very high. So when GT happened, it was more of a disappointment than it actually being a quote bad series, because there are both good and bad episodes in GT. There's good or bad forms. I like Super Saiyan 4. I like the baby backstory. I thought that was fantastic. I love the concept of the Shadow Dragons. There's a lot of good stuff there, but I do think a lot of it does feel kind of drab. I did want to ask you, before we dig into this here, you mentioned the first arc, which is the Dark Dragon Ball arc, where they're looking for the Black Star Dragon Balls. This is before the baby arc, even though they both kind of segue into each other. How would you compare that to... Because it's 22 episodes. How would you compare that to the movie retellings of Super? Because I think the big problem when comparing Super to GT is that a lot of people are going to sit here and say Super's better without thinking. Okay, yes, maybe it is better. I'm not saying you're wrong about that. And there are things about Super that's better, but people forget that the first 27 episodes of Super were movie retellings, and a lot of them were not very good.
A lot of episodes, especially... really, the whole Frieza fight in the Resurrection F arc was pretty lackluster, I would say. I always say, Dragon Ball Super, to me, never started until episode 28. Unfortunately, you can't really go in as a new fan that finished, Ball Z and go into Super. You can't really go into Super at 28 because there are tidbits of like Champa and other stuff in earlier episodes, but it really didn't start until 28, and after that, I mean, there's not been too many episodes, aside from the whole copy Vegeta stuff. There's some lame stuff there. Most stuff after that's been pretty damn solid, I would say, especially with, everyone can agree, the most recent arc is phenomenal. But, I mean, you look at the first arc of GT, and it's all new material. It's definitely calling back a little bit to the hunt for the Dragon Ball arc in the original Dragon Ball. In many ways, Goku being a kid, hunting for the Dragon Balls, and this time across the universe. And what was great about that saga really is all the designs. A lot of the planets were designed, and the characters, Goku, Trunks, Pan.
Toriyama, man.
Yeah, Toriyama designs. Didn't make Super Saiyan 4, but we've both done our videos on that.
We dropped them at the same day, I think, which was weird.
We did. We didn't even know we were doing them, but people got all up in arms about that, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
That was in January, I think, when that happened.
Yeah. I mean, we did our research pretty good, so But but anyways, back to this. It's not a terrible arc. It has enjoyable bits, and a lot of that is the environmental designs. A lot of it is a lot of the new characters. I think Legic was kind of cool, but the problem is he was barely in it, but he was a cool character. Even though the fight wasn't really that great. But aside from like the desert planet, I don't even remember what the hell it was even called. That was kind of a boring bit, but there were some good spots. There's the part with Rildo. That's a cool fight.
I like that a lot.
Him to Majin Buu. If you really go in and look at the dollar, especially go in when you watch GT, you gotta watch that and with the subs on. Come on. I mean, you can choose to listen to it in the dub or the original Japanese, but especially with GT for some of those stuff, you want to listen to the sub.
Dude, there's a lot of mistranslations we're talking about.
Plus, the American soundtrack's terrible for GT, but
I don't even think that's even available anymore. Like I'm pretty sure that the Green Bricks only have the Japanese. Am I right on that?
No, I have the Green Bricks. I'm pretty sure they have the American, but I always switch it to the Japanese soundtrack because that soundtrack. You can say what you want about GT, but that soundtrack is right up where the best of Dragon Ball for me. That is a phenomenal soundtrack.
You're talking about the original Japanese, not the Mark Menza.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to also bring up the animation. Obviously, Super had a lot of animation hiccups, and that's the one thing I think GT does have over Super. GT's animation, even though the color palette, I don't like the GT color palette. I think that the Goku looking like a little Puerto Rican kid, that's not what Goku looks like.
It is very distinct.
It's very distinct.
You can tell it apart. But I agree. I don't know what the heck they did with Goku. I don't know why he looked like he got out of a 10-year tanning bed. So I don't know, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. Like some of that bothers me, but the actual animation itself, I think, is beautiful. GT has great animation, no matter what anybody says, and I think it's a lot more consistent.
There's some reused shots, but that's the same with any anime. But I would say it's more reused shots than something what you'd see in Z. But the animation, it's better than Z overall, in my opinion. It's a very well animated anime. Yeah, it really is. There's not a lot of low points.
It's more consistent than Super. Now, definitely is. We know that GT has. I'm sorry. We know that Super has the Future Trunks arc, and it is a great arc so far. It's not over yet.
Huh? Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's not over yet though. Now, what arc in GT would you say was what would you say are the good arcs of GT? Now, okay, let me rephrase that. The great arcs. Like, would you say the Shadow Dragon arc is great, or the Baby arc, or neither one of them is really that great in your opinion?
I think the Baby arc has its missteps. Just with GT's general goofiness, really. There's just a lot of goofy stuff in GT. It doesn't really fit. I think the Baby arc, though, in comparison to the whole series as a whole, in that whole series as a whole, the GT series to be specific, I think that is a great arc. I do like the Shadow Dragon stuff, although the designs were awesome, and there were some really creative elements of those dragons.
Yeah, they all had their own powers. It was a great idea.
Yeah,
I thought the execution
was a lot of the fights were not the best, and I think it wasn't the choreography or the animation. It's just because they were one-sided most of all. I believe it was Rage Shenron. That was a cool one. I think Goku had to go Super Saiyan 4. But the thing is, GT doesn't stick in my mind as good as the rest of the series because it's not something that I go back and rewatch quite as much. But Omega Shenron, Sin Shenron, that whole...
And the Fire and Ice Dragons I thought were fantastic.
Yeah, that whole set of episodes I think is great. I think it's a fantastic set of episodes. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, I think that undoubtedly, for me, is, even though it might seem kind of generic.
It's only one episode.
Yeah, that's the highlight of the whole series for me, though. That is it's a historical scene for the whole entire franchise, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a fun episode. Now, before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you, is there any arc in GT that you think compares specifically in quality to the Future Trunks arc? Like, is there anything in there that compares to it? And is there a villain that compares to Goku Black? Because I think Baby is a criminally underrated villain when it comes to Dragon Ball.
He's got a lot of depth to him if you go in there. Well, you can use your own headcanon as well, but
no, he's got an actual beef. But so does Goku Black in a way. I think Baby's beef is actually more legit. But is he as great of a villain? Like, do you think anything in GT can really fuck with the Trunks arc right now?
No, absolutely not.
So, okay, but the Trunks arc is only the last fourth of the first 64 episodes. So, that's the question I'm going to pose to the people down in the comments. And of course, I'm actually going to put a poll up in the upper right hand corner, upper right hand corner of the thing. I want you guys to vote.
Don't forget to put it there, like I would.
I might forget, but I probably won't. No, I want everybody to vote. Do you think that with the 64 episodes of Super that we have so far are in total better than GT? And what I mean is, you have to factor in the bad stuff. You got to put in the Universe 6 disappointment stuff. You got to put in the Potafu arc. You got to put in the Battle of the Gods and the Resurrection F letdown. Because look, Brad, that's 46 episodes of.
Listen, bro, the Super Satan versus Beebus makes the whole series. So
a lot of people have said that. So
I think that is an amazing episode, though. Come on, bro. So even though it's just a goof episode. That was like what, episode 15, I think. That's
but GT's got that one tournament episode, which I thought was really fun too.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, it's so hard.
But there's so many characters wasted in GT too.
Yeah, but in Super it's the same thing.
I don't disagree with you.
That's why we're making this comparison.
We got some more Vegeta action, though.
Goku and Vegeta get new forms. They're probably going to be fusing in Super, you know. They're fighting a villain that has a vendetta. There's just a lot of similarities. That's why we're doing this video. But I do think, though, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I do think that the final... that the first, I think that the Resurrection F stuff really hurts Super, dude. Mm-hmm. And I think if they would have made that better, it would be significantly better than GT. But I think that there's enough good stuff in GT, especially Goku versus Baby Vegeta, because there was a lot of great stuff in that fight.
That's a really good fight. It really is. It kind of
is there a fight in Super?
It does go a little downhill when the ape comes out for Baby, when he turns into an ape. It's still good, but it definitely is better when you see the evolution of Goku getting trashed, and you know, it's classic. You know, it's classic, but it's also, you know, what happens in Dragon Ball Lies. You're getting beat up, you get a power up, and then you're starting to trash it. But the way it happened in that fight, he's just tanking all the shots, and it does nothing, and it's just an amazing moment. And the animation was on point. You can't go wrong.
And that's what I want to tell everybody too, is that this is one of those things where, it's one of those things where, is there a fight in Super that compares to that fight? Take off your nostalgia.
It was good.
But it was good, but it was also kind of stupid too. Like, take off, like, some of it was good, some of it was not. Take off the nostalgia goggles and tell us, like, do you really, like, go back, if you need to go back and watch it, folks, rewatch Super Saiyan 4 Goku versus Baby. That's a very underrated fight. The whole arc was pretty epic near the end. I would say the last part of that arc I thought was great. I don't know if Super has done anything yet. Not saying they won't yet to top it, but that's what the debate's for. So
the problem with the Future Trunks arc is there haven't been enough fights that have lasted a significant enough amount of time. Yep. There's too much stomping in between. Like that first scrap with Goku, Future Trunks, Black, and Zamasu, with all those fantastic camera angles. If that had kept on going longer, it would have been one of the greats. And it was great. But it would have been one of the top tiers. There were some fantastic animation moments in that first scrap they had in the future.
Yeah,
but
I agreed.
They cut it short.
It's expensive, though, to get...
The Trunks' whatever his new form, power-up, whatever we are going to call it, I hope they explain it soon. That whole thing where he's fighting Black, that was kind of disappointing in my opinion. That power-up really never put me in awe. So I think in terms of fights, I mean, the Baby and Goku fight probably was the best one in GT, I would say. And I think the only one in Super that can come close is Goku versus Beerus. Yeah. Goku versus Hit for the most part.
That was also too short, I felt. Good, right? But a little too short. Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about the Universe 6 stuff in a second, because I think a lot of people are, you know, they do... bash it a little bit, even though a lot of people love it, but
it's very polarizing.
Yes. And again, the Zamasu stuff, the Goku Black Zamasu stuff, that just need to last long with those fights. And I think, especially if they do fusion with Vegito, even though however that fight's gonna go, I think just the fact that's gonna be fusion versus fusion is enough to make it one of the biggest highlights of the whole entire franchise, really. A fusion versus fusion battle. How many times have we seen that?
Okay, yes, but that's happening after 64. So we're talking about just the first 64 Super.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's the later video. Okay. But we want to hear your thoughts,
I want to talk about the Universe 6 stuff, though.
Yeah, go ahead. Say whatever you need to say.
The thing about the Universe 6 stuff is, for me, even though, you know, you, pretty much everyone in our little crew here, right? We look at spoilers for Super. We report on news, leaked titles, leaked manga chapters, all that stuff. So we know stuff in advance. We don't get surprised by the episodes themselves. I think even knowing that, I have to sometimes take my brain and twist it to put it in the mind of a new viewer, someone that would be seeing it without knowing the events, you know,
That's
in
right.
advance.
You have to do that. Yeah, I agree.
A lot of people can't do that, though. That's the problem. And I mentioned in my reviews, you know, if I didn't know this, it would have been better, and keep that in mind. Even knowing that, though, the Universe 6 arc was full of surprises.
Yeah, I agree.
Frost cheating, Frost being a villain. Some people might have said it was too obvious, but it was one of those things where you thought he was a good guy, you didn't. You know, it was 50-50 right there. But he having that poison, that was so unique. Piccolo fighting him was a great little battle. It was very one-sided, but he was keeping up and using his tactics. Botama was crappy. But Vegeta versus Megetta, that whole scenario, and such a unique scenario, having Vegeta get overheated. I mean, just to sidetrack, the anime version of the Universe 6 arc, in my opinion, was better than the manga. But we're talking about the anime for GT and the anime for Super.
Yeah, there is no manga for GT, so we can't even compare that.
Well, some people will tell you that. But
I know, we can't.
But no, I mean, Universe 6 stuff, just all the new. The thing is what was so exciting about that was that, again, starting from 28.
I do think that Super has way better new characters. That GT cannot.
Toriyama designs and ideas that start really did begin with episode 28 and onward. It was just an exciting time, and that middle scene with the planet, whatever the hell, you know the name better than I do.
Well, that was filler.
It's not memorable enough for me to remember. It had some cool bits. It really did.
Yeah, I just think that Jocko, Beerus, Champa, Vados, Hit, Kabe, I think those are way cooler than Baby and the Shadow Dragons. I'm not saying I don't like them. I'm saying that I think that these new characters are much better.
Yeah, but
my opinion.
A close place in my heart for Omega Shenron, but I think it's because
well, I do too.
Because of Budokai 3, he was disgusting in that game, but
well, I just
aside. I mean, Omega Shenron could have been used a little bit more, but you know, he was a cool character design at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. Same thing with Super 17. They could have used him a lot better too. And Baby, I thought had a great backstory.
It was a cool idea. It was definitely a cool idea.
So let us know what you think, folks. Has Dragon Ball Super with 64 episodes in the can matching up to GT? Have they surpassed GT? Also, some misconceptions I want to get out of the way real quick. GT was not originally supposed to be 64 episodes. It did get canceled because of poor merchandise sales and poor ratings, but I'm going to do a video on that in the future. I'm not going to talk about that here. So understand that it's kind of a weird comparison because Super's still going on, but the question is, has the 64 episodes of Super surpassed the 64 episodes of GT so far? And remember, it's not just the Trunks arc. You have to criticize the whole thing. Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, Universe 6, and Potafu. So.
I think just, you know, the lowest point of Super for me, you know, it's tough because I'm going to talk about as a whole collective point just very, very quickly because there are obviously one, you know, episode or two in the middle of arcs, you know, spread out that can be lackluster. There's like a slow episode here, a slow episode there, which Super is full of. That Resurrection F, though, fight, Goku, Frieza, and Vegeta was really not good. It was cool when Vegeta fought him, but it really wasn't a good fight. But the stuff they did with Tagoma was awesome. I liked that. But once Frieza jumped in, it was downhill. That's what I want to say. But overall, I would still lean towards Super. I really liked the Beerus and Goku fight. A lot of the Battle of God stuff was awesome. And I have a very unpopular opinion. I still find the episode where Goku goes Super Saiyan God, that whole transformation, I still find that to be a really boring episode. That's one of my least favorite episodes, and that's a very unpopular opinion. But it just did not engage me. But overall, Super is just more engaging. And even though the Trunks arc, we have to look at everything, the Trunks arc is so good, though. It really is a fantastic arc so far.
I agree. Let's let the people decide, man. And everybody go check out Dragon Ball Nation. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description below. Josh covers everything. Games, anime. I mean, you cover everything pretty much.
Well, yeah, as long as it's Dragon Ball. That's why my name's Dragon Ball Nation.
An entire nation of Dragon Ball.
You aren't seeing anything else there. Well, you know, aside from what you're going to see in the Q&A, but that's it.
Maybe one day, though.
Yeah, maybe one day.
We'll see. All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the video. We'll talk to y'all later.